this week, back in the studio. Very excited, getting into somewhat of a new normal. This is Stogie Geeks episode 329. We have an interview lined up. There's a few technical difficulties that we are working through, and our audio engineer and video engineer, production extraordinaire Johnny, is working on that. So, the stick of the week this week is the Brickhouse Maduro Toro. JC Newman did a promotion for that, and we're going to talk about Brickhouse. I've had tons of brick houses in my experience, so there'll be lots to talk about with that, and the sticks of the week to let you know what we've been smoking. And if the technical gods are in our favor, we will have the interview. And if not, Drew and I, Maverick and Goose, are never short of words. Stogie Geeks episode 329 starts right now.
This is a Security Weekly production. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where cigars burn slow, ashes fall fast, and cocktails flow steady. It's the Stogie Geek Show. Welcome, everyone, to the Stogie Geek Show. Joe and I are already silly.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Hozempa, a.k.a. Joe Hollywood, is here with me in studio.
I'm fired up.
Havana Cigar Club, located in Warwick, Rhode Island, is a great place to enjoy a drink and a cigar. Stogie Geeks listeners can find a $5 off coupon on our website by clicking the HCC logo.
Confidence. Confidence isn't walking into a room with your nose in the air, thinking you're better than anyone else. It's walking into a room and not having to compare yourself to anyone in the first place.
What's up? It's been 62 days since I have perused these four walls. I am your host, Joe Hozempa, here for Stogie Geeks, episode 329. It's different. It feels different. And when I got used to life on the road, I must say I love the hospitality of the layout. We have hand sanitizer. We have freshly sanitized wipe gear, and I'm here in studio, super excited to be here. It's been a wild ride for all of us. I remember when Drew and I did the first remote for me. Obviously Drew has joined remote. It's like a fish out of water, right? Looking this way, that way, trying to figure that all out, but glad to be back. Scheduling, don't know if I'm going to be back consistently. We have to figure that out and whatnot. But anyway, I will be like most of you and most of our Stogie Geeks listeners who are just enjoying the privileges of today. And before we start episode 329, I want to introduce the little dark-haired kid from Texas, Mr. Drew Gavin. How are you?
Hey, Joe. How's it going, man? Good to see you back in the studio. I'm actually watching you on the monitor up here I got set up for out in the garden, so enjoying the Texas weather. We're supposed to get some storms, and it's been great. Otherwise, yeah, just like you, just staying nice and clean and healthy. And I'm not going out. I'm not going out at all. I'm gonna let everybody else go out and see what they got going on, and then I'll figure out from there, because the experts, the politicians, city leaders, state leaders, nobody knows. Nobody understands. Nobody has a clear, concise plan moving forward. Everybody's bickering and fighting each other over here. I can go on for a while on this. But
the same thing's happening here. A song comes to my head. Nobody knows the trouble I've been through. Nobody knows but Jesus. Every time I'm telling you, I'm excited to talk to you today, just because I'm sitting in the, I'm nice. I got spotlights and things are back to normal. AC's on. I got fresh air blowing through. I'm just enjoying the moment for today. And I think that most of us who are going through all of this are in the same boat, regardless of state. You know what I mean? You watch the news, you get one thing. You scroll through online, you get another thing. If you're into reading the news, you get another thing. You get different theories and whatnot. And you know, the bottom line is, and this is the advice that I gave to my family. So I consider our listeners an extension of the family. Where Drew and I are very grateful to have you here. And to have you tuning in, and we thank you for that, and we thank you for your emails that come in. It's the advice I gave is pretty simple, right? It's listen, you have to go with what your comfort level is. If you pay attention to your body, you know what your immune system's like. If you're wearing a mask and you're out in public, you're not only doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for other people. Please be considerate of just that. I'm not going on a mass tirade. It's just, it's about other people. And the lesson here, and it's regardless of COVID, is that we all live on the same rock, right? Or planet, right? And you really need to just it's lessons that, my God, I'm teaching my kid, right? Wash your hands, brush your teeth, take care of your hygiene, try to be safe. Every time I tell him no, it's not because I'm just dad. It's safety, safety, safety. You know what I mean? No, you can't touch those chemicals. And no, you can't have cookies before breakfast. Those are not my rules. Those are rules of nature. And I think that if we kind of slow down and use a little bit of common sense and see what your threshold is. Obviously, you go to takeout and politicians are saying, well, use takeout. There's an unknown, tip them great. It's like, I know that the hospitality sector and luxury and leisure and travel are going to be the most hit for sure. As things are getting canceled, as months go on, here at Security Weekly, we were looking at our big conference in August in Vegas. That has canceled. Cigar-related news, PCA, in July has canceled, even though some people think I can't talk about PCA because I've never been to a show. Anyway, right? It's like, and I was just talking to Johnny off air, like, when's our next conference for Security Week, and so we're going through our motions. Personally, we're looking at vacation, right? Family vacation, where we're going, where we were going to go, how that's definitely changed. If we go, are we going? Are we driving? All these different things. The bottom line is, I think if we all just slow down and we take it day by day, and do our best to be safe, keep our loved ones safe. Let the politicians do their thing. Because there's always going to be an argument for there. Because now it's about ratings, right? I've worked for a major news station here in the Providence Metro. And on the outside of my Security Weekly duties, we still do advertising for them. Through my business and my agency, and it's like, it's all about ratings. The higher the rating, the Nielsen ratings that they get, the higher they can price and demand the price. It's based upon cume, the amount of eyes and ears you can hear it. So now it's turned into a little bbit dragged out, and it's a dragged out agenda, and it's pretty unfortunate. And if you're getting your news from, you have to go with a source that you could trust, and I'm not preaching which one you should use, but you again, it's your comfort level. That's my advice to everyone, is you got to find your comfort level. You got to find your comfort level for the threshold of the news, and you got to find your comfort level for the threshold of your own health and the health of your family, and doing that. And that's the way it goes. I mean, we're not going out and doing all of that stuff. We got a little guy at home trying to make the best of things. We go out, but it's not like we go out. You know what I mean? The only normal thing I've done over the past 3 weeks was golf. Golf has been practicing social distancing forever. Other than, and you walk and you do your thing, and it gives you a little sense of normalcy, and that's that. And it's just crazy. It's crazy to see.
I definitely agree with you on that. It's just, to me, it's like, if you see, like, my news source, I just go to Comedy Central. I go there because they give me all the shortcut versions of the truth and the non-truth. So I just kind of sort it out. And then I go to the real news channels, and then I look at them and I'm like, okay, okay, I had enough of this, and on to the next thing. But as you said, definitely, it's been a lot different norm, new norm, as everybody calls it, to I'm very conscientious. If I'm outside, my wife and I, we're out shopping at stores or whatever, doing what we got to do to pick up the essentials. We make sure we wear our masks, and when other people don't wear a mask, or we just kind of navigate away from that area, because to me it's just be common courtesy to everybody else, your own neighbor, just to try to keep everybody safe. But other than that, for me, the big thing is just sports, man. I no baseball, no, it sucks. It's like, where's baseball at?
I understand.
I understand. And so, yeah, that's for me right now is the biggest thing. And then, concerts, it's nice. It's going to become summer here pretty quick. And normally we get a pretty good flow through of artists that come through and put on a good concert series at many of the venues we have here in North Texas, which I'm in the Dallas area, for those of you who don't know. But yeah, it's just nice to get out and enjoy, good music and other people that, enjoy this, the groups and the bands and what have you. And
it is. Yeah. It is nice to do that, and I'm sure you will have your yearly calendar and your yearly rhythm that goes on in your family and all of that, and it's been interrupted. And I think that's the biggest problem, is that with where things are going, is that it's been interrupted.
Yeah, the brick and mortar shops, like, just to go on another point here, I went to a couple in the last week. Actually, a few. I think I went through 6 different ones, just looking for sticks and things of that nature. But it's just, I feel bad for those guys, because, man, they really want to open up. They really want to serve their customer. They really want the customer to have that experience that they like to have, and going through the humidor and pick out their sticks and, get a tray and talk shop with the owners or with the other patrons that are there. And and it sucks, that curbside's the only way to do it at this point. But at the same point, like, as I tell them, just keep going there, man. Anytime you need sticks, reload, go up there, call them up, let them know, give them your list, and they'll have them ready. But yeah, it's just of course, what really gets me right now is just the unemployment rate is just terrible. I mean, just terrible for anybody in the restaurant industry, in the sales industry, going to the malls, and it's terrible. It's terrible to see all this thing going on.
You know me, I like to talk facts and figures. Retail is down 16.2% in the month of April. That's retail, global, for U.S., right? Give you an idea, the worst it's been was 12.9. Right? So let's look at it. I mean, I can't turn it off. I went to school for economics, so it's just how my freaking brain was wired, right? So you got to put it in perspective, right? So retail's down. So everyone's down, right? That's all across the board. Everyone's down.
Yeah, everybody.
Here's the bright side. At least we're not in a situation where tanks are driving down Main Street from someone else, demanding to conquer land.
Yes.
Right? I really, you know what I mean? Like, and it's funny, because it's not funny. I've spoken to people who are in other countries, and about because obviously with what I do in the Security Weekly responsibilities, we speak to other people, and some of these cybersecurity companies are in other countries, obviously, and we speak to them. And I was speaking to this really older CISO who's been around, and he's now retired. And he's like, yeah, in my country, it was crazy. Like a tank would show up and demand land, and we were forced to be in quarantine in a house. And on certain days, people were allowed to go and get essentials. And it mattered, like, if you were an odd number or even number. I'm assuming it would be done by address and whatnot. And just so, like, I don't know. I just kind of got off the Zoom call, typed in my notes for my jolly duties, and I looked at my son and I says, you know something? He's got a good point. We're still as free as other, contrary to media belief, what people are saying and doing that there. And we have to find ways to go back and do our thing. I know that there's a big drive-in boom, and golf is big, and fishing is big, and social distancing, bike riding, bicycle, pedal, bicycling, and all of that stuff. And maybe it's time. I don't know. This is turning into a Kumbaya episode of Stogie Geek, so I'm gonna pivot rapidly. But maybe it's time to just to just change the thing and just deal with it, because what's your choice? It's not like you can get on a rocket ship and say, I don't like Earth anymore, I'm gonna go somewhere else. You know what I mean? And you got to deal with it.
Unless you're Elon Musk.
He's probably planning something on that. Well, yeah, I can go on business with him. He's threatening. He opened and said, "Frickin', if you arrest anybody, arrest me. If not, I'm out of here." Like, frickin', but he's got FU money. You know what I mean? Like, you could throw it around, but. Again, it is what it is. I want to talk about Sticks of the Week. If we get our technical things straightened out, we'll have our interview. If not, we'll reschedule. No worries. I could certainly pivot. We could certainly pivot. I have plenty to talk about socially, what's been going on in the industry. We got some industry updates and all of that stuff. But let's get together and let's talk about what we've been smoking. But before we do that, Stick of the Week is the Brick House Maduro Toro.
Oh, yeah.
And I've talked about Brick House when it was Cigar Club Radio, and then I switched from there and came here and whatnot. I've always loved their marketing pitch, right? It's give us $5 and no, I'm sorry, not give us. I apologize. All you need is $5 and a comfortable chair, and quite frankly, that's pretty good COVID advice if you ask me. You know what I mean? You find, I found myself doing meetings on Zoom outside of my house with the Wi-Fi, smoking a cigar, going through our business and doing all of that. But let's talk about the concept of $5 and a comfortable chair, and let's get into the Brick House Maduro Toro. You want me to talk about the stick? The dimensions and all that super cool stuff? Okay. Yeah. This is a 6x52. It is all Nicaraguan wrapper binder filler. It's obviously in regular production. It is available in a boatload of different sizes. So if you want to know those sizes, you can go to the JC Newman website and check them out. Or I can rattle them off for you if you really want to hear my voice. If you are driving, there you go. So, you have a Churchill, a Corona Lager, a Mighty Mighty, a Traveler Toro, Short Torpedo, Robusto Corona, and the little nubby thing that they like to call the teaser. And there you go. And you know what's interesting, honestly? If you get into a line, and this has, and this extends beyond Brick House there, if you get into a line of cigars and you get into there, if you really smoke the different sizes, you truly do get a different experience for sure there. And we've talked about that whenever we have interviews, which size do they roll it to and all of that stuff there too. But let's get into kind of how this tasted for you, Drew.
So on this cigar here, I've actually had quite a few of these Brick House sticks, and the Maduro wrapper, really comes through, real rich. It's a Brazilian. I can never say this word.
Oh yes, I apologize. It is not all the way through. It is Nicaraguan binder and filler, and the wrapper is Brazilian Arapiraca.
Whatever. Maduro.
Arapiraca.
Arapiraca. Arapiraca.
And the only reason why I can say that is because I've been corrected on that many times.
Mm-hmm. And for me, it's been about the third time you and I have had that discussion about Arapiraca.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very rich. Complement the cigar with coffee in the morning for sure. In the evenings, I do it with a little bit of a Merlot wine, and that blend, just really pairs very nicely. It's super smooth, full smoke. I mean, just really rich in content, and it just, as you get through the stick, I mean, you get the small nuances of cocoa, and then you get this, the sweetness running through from the dang it.
Go ahead, give it.
A Raparaca Maduro wrapper. So
Say it wicked fast.
A Raparaca.
There you go.
A Raparaca. There you go. So yeah, I mean, it's just really, slightly sweet. You can really just, enjoy it. Like I said, enjoy the cigar either in the morning, which I have, and in the evenings. And it's a good nightcap cigar, for sure. If anything, with your favorite wine or beverage of choice. But yeah, I mean, I have no. I mean, this cigar has been nothing but a complete, consistent. The burn's nice and even. It doesn't really, overpower any senses really. And I go looking for these things. I mean, I'll hold the smoke in my mouth for, as long as I can hold my breath, and let it swish it around, and try to get it in the back of the, the tongue, the front of the tongue, the sides, and my gums and cheeks and what have you, and roll my tongue up to the roof of my mouth and see what else I can get out of there. And it's just really, really a phenomenal.
Roll your tongue up to the roof of your mouth. That sounds like the Spanish lover.
No. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, it's not super complex. It's just very easy on the palate, and it's a great cigar for for the $5 market, area, depending on where you're at. But yeah. The brick house has been around. It was originally launched, I believe, in 1930s.
Yep.
37.
Yep.
That's what it was.
Yeah, it was launched. It was launched back then, and I crisscrossed in my mind. I was so excited to sit in this chair, as it's been 62 days. Not that I counted, but I did. Right, and the original brick house is all Connecticut, wrapper binder filler, all Connecticut. This here, they changed to the Brazilian Arapiraca for the Brickhouse Maduro for the wrapper, right? And that's, traditionally, obviously, when you smoke a Nicaraguan cigar, you mentioned, you piqued my interest, right? When you said Merlot. I absolutely love dark cigars, or mostly kind of, for me, classic facings, right? So just to give the Stogie Geeks listener like a visual, as opposed to me just rattling off names. A classic dark Maduro cigars and red wine is just such a plethora of on your palate for sure.
Yeah.
And also it's different because sometimes I remember when the glory days, cigar shops were BYOB. Here in Rhode Island, most of them were, and I would get like a bottle of red wine or a Merlot. I'd go Melback, which now I'm separating the categories, right? But you guys do it rockier soil at a higher elevation. I won't bore you guys with all of that. But if you're into Merlots and you're into red wines, try a Melback there as well, and especially like a rich Melback, right? There. Or even if you want to complement the sweetness, you could go Cabernet Sauvignon. Super cool idea as well. And again, just like having different sizes that are available, the different offerings, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Melback, will change that there. And what I've noticed is, like with the wine, because it's not like here I got my freaking Tanqueray and tonic, and I take a nice big sip. The with the wine, you kind of like you don't kind of guzzle it anyway. You know what I mean? Sometimes you do if it's your fourth or fifth glass of wine and you're starting your second bottle and you're feeling kind of rowdy. I've been there, done that. But what I like about it is that with the Brazilian Arapiraca, even if you don't have it with wine and you have it with coffee or whatever, there is an element of sweetness that balances that classic Nicaraguan facing or tasting that you would normally get. For you newer smokers who are listening to Stogie Geeks, and a shop owner or someone, a mentor or whatever, a friend had said, well, the Maduros are kind of like spicier and then the regular wrappers and stuff like that. if you're already into the Nicaraguan warehouse there, you can deal with the spicy. So try a Brickhouse Maduro. And there you go, because I do know, I mean, obviously, when I walk into cigar shops and brick and mortars in the glory days, right? Yeah. How we started the show in the glory days, right? You know, I would listen to customers come in, you know, especially if I'm alone doing computer work or whatever, you just hear it in the background. And they're either trained or they say, you know, I don't want Maduro because I don't like really spicy. It's because Maduro doesn't really make it spicy. I mean, you can get, it is traditionally a spicier cigar, but though I honestly feel that that's kind of like pre-Nicaraguan boom speech there coming from, you know, if you only smoke Dominican and you go to a Nicaraguan Maduro, yeah, it's going to be spicy. But if you previously smoked Dominican or Honduran and you go to a Nicaraguan, it's going to be spicy anyway. So point of conversation is if you've done anything from Nicaraguan, you can certainly handle the Maduro component for those new Stogie geeks that are listening and tuning in, because I do get questions like that via email. You know what I mean? Like, you know, darker the wrapper, is it spicier? Not necessarily. That's a good rule of thumb, but you know, that's my kind of thing. Experiment. You might like it. You know, I think that the J.C. Newman Company has done a phenomenal job with marketing that cigar and positioning that cigar, and that's super important, especially in these times, whether you're a brick and mortar cigar shop or a restaurant. And you know, it's all about positioning, right? You have to position that product. So again, it does have hints of sweetness. It is full-bodied, but it's full-bodied Nicaraguan, which doesn't necessarily mean it's peppery or spicy. Again, if you've had Nicaraguan, you know what I'm talking about. If you're new to it and you need a little bit of an explanation, email me, joe@stogiegeeks.com. I'll call you and I'll elaborate more. You know, and then there you go. But yeah, it's darker and spicier than the original Brick House. But again, it's been around. That line has been around since 1937. You said, right? It's time for a change, and I think it's a great rekindle. It's a great effort by J.C. Newman Factory to produce that. And again, $5 in a comfortable chair is all you need, so go for it.
Take that baby on the golf course for a little ride too. I've done that with that Brickhouse stick and with my coffee, a straight black. And I'll tell you, man, some of those notes start to carry through. You know, you really get that caramel mixture going. You get that, you know, if you do add some cream, I add just regular straight up half and half to my coffees when I feel like it, and yeah, sometimes I'll pop in some of that Bailey's Irish cream, just to have fun with it. You know, but other than that, I mean, with the Maduro on this stick, you definitely get that sweetness that really comes through. And like I said, when you coat your palate with any of these beverages we're now discussing, it definitely complements this cigar so well, and it leaves you kind of wonder, man, it's $5 stick or $5 plus wherever you're at, but yet it's something you can definitely enjoy throughout the year. And I definitely have a box.
Yep.
And I have an ashtray.
There you go. And so Stogie Geeks rating, you would give it a box? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely a good stick to have in your rotation, and it's definitely a good stick to have. We all, when we have summer gatherings, and I think we're going to have more barbecues this year, right? We're going to have more 10-person barbecues this year. Not to go on a tangent why, I promise, right? But, you know, it's a good stick to give to someone who would want to try a spicier blend for their profile and all of that, and they won't be disappointed. Let's talk ratings. Cigar Aficionado gave it a 91. I'd agree with that. Cigar Spirits gave it a 93. Cigar Journal gave it a 90, and Smoke Magazine gave it a 90. Those are the recorded ratings for that stick. I think it gets really interesting with the Brickhouse blend when you're talking about the Brickhouse Double Connecticut, but we're not talking about that on this episode. So the Brickhouse Maduro, Drew, do you have a size? And you already gave a rating, but do you have a size that you like?
I do the Robustos. I do my Robustos. I mean, that's my go-to size of stick because of time and just being able to pick out, you know, anything that I really like about that cigar. It's a fair, decent size stick. that you can cut through in about 45 minutes, or even up to an hour and 15 minutes, as long as those have been my experience with that stick.
Okay, one thing I want to do. Stogie Geeks, I apologize. I have to correct myself. I said it was available in a boatload of sizes. It's available in 3. I was on the wrong stick. It's available in a Robusto, Toro, and a Mighty Mighty. That being said, I correct myself and I apologize. The Robusto is a 5x54, the Toro is a 6x52, and the Mighty Mighty is a 6.5x60. I've had multiples. I've had all the sizes there. In fact, I had the Mighty Mighty first because I think that's what JC Newman shipped to us first. And I was kind of like, okay, cool, yeah. Then I went out and got the Toro and the Robusto. I think Toro's cool. Robusto is where it's at for me. That's a very common statement coming from me anyway, regardless of there. So it's available in 3 different sizes. There you go. And you gave it a box rating?
Yes, I did. It is definitely a box with a cigar. Yep. You can share this with friends. You can share it with, even with my wife. I mean, she doesn't really like a lot of the smells because I smoke a lot of very high Lajero rich cigars, but this cigar, she's like, oh, that's a very nice cigar. And she doesn't mind. She doesn't mind sticking around with me in the cigar garden while I'm smoking that, and she's reading her Kindle or what have you.
You made a man. Every time I talk to you, you always bring up another idea. That's why I love it. I love it. You mentioned the significant other, your wife, and there are some cigars that I've smoked 24 hours before I smoked it, and I would swear on my right hand I didn't have another cigar since, either schedule or whatever. And she's like, when did you have time to smoke a cigar today? I didn't smoke a cigar today. You smoked a cigar today because I could smell it. I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you know what I mean? And it's just not an issue, but it's funny because sometimes people would judge that there, right? And we got to do a Story Geek episode because I have this down to a science as far as geographical region as to what you can get away with smoking and kissing your significant other versus not.
Yes.
And let me tell you something. Stop compiling that list, Drew, because that would make a phenomenal Story Geeks episode for those who deal with their significant others and they're like, man, like, or whatever, right? And you get blamed for that. I have it down, and I even have it down to brands you could deal without brushing your teeth.
Oh, there you go.
Because you've come off the golf course and met them in a restaurant, case in point, and you give them a kiss, and they're like, hey, how you doing? Good to see you, blah, blah, blah. But if I had the one for 24 hours ago and walked in the house and give a kiss and say, where'd you have to smoke? Did you golf today? Right? So I think that would be a funny, awesome episode. So in your production calendar notes, let's launch that pretty soon, like maybe June, July. There just because of show scheduling, but let's consider. I think that's a super cool episode.
It is.
You know what I mean? Because I've gone as far as like having some and then meeting, or you get the call. Oh, I'm at my mother's and we're gonna do a barbecue here, especially in the summer. I live in a summer water town. Oh, we're gonna barbecue, and I'm like, oh boy, I just had a boatload of cigars, and and you're gonna want the hi, honey. How are you? I have it down to a science. Trust me, and it's how my brain works. I can't turn it off. There you go. I would give it a box worthy as well. Super cool. Can't beat the price point. And away you go. So, Drew, what else have you been smoking?
So I got into some of the I got into the humidor there a little bit. Started rummaging through. Sent some stuff over to Cigars for Warriors. To get rid of some of the cigars I have. But I found my Perdomo Lot 23 Maduro Robusto.
Oh, yeah. So, this cigar, it features a 5-year aged higher priming Cuban seed Nicaraguan Maduro wrapper. It really tends to give you a little sweetness in the front end there. It's aged 5 years. Cuban seed again, Nicaraguan binder, and filler tobaccos. So
it's a little complex cigar. I mean, I've had probably 6 in my drawer, and I kept 3, gave away 3, and then I busted that out, and then I busted out another one yesterday. And man, this cigar is just outstanding with aromas. It's definitely got a little spice on the finish. Again, the sizes they do offer the Vitolas is the Gordito, 4.5 by 60, and then they have the Robusto at 5 by 50. Then they have a Bellicoso at a 6 by 54, and then a Toro at 6 by 50. And then they have a Churchill at 7 by 50. And anybody that knows Perdomo, Nick, they do a great job out there. I mean, they really put out many different Vitolas in any of their offerings. And again, the wrapper on this one, Nicaraguan Maduro. Binder's Cuban seed Nicaraguan. Filler, same as Cuban seed Nicaraguan. It is a medium to full strength cigar. For me, it's more on the medium side, just barely touches the full side, just with a little bit of the zest that I get out of there. And I'm starting to understand the word zest and pepper. Not that I haven't, but on this cigar, it really transitioned through. I even started to change my draw habit a little bit, probably in the last month since we've been locked down in quarantine. It's just because I've been listening to some of the experts, and they are experts, I'm not going to say who they are, about doing the retro hell. So I've been cutting down my retro hells just to really hone in on these flavors. So notes on this, you're going to get a really rich and creamy chocolate at the beginning, and it just really comes through really nice and smooth. It's very light but creamy, and it just really coats the palate very well. And then you'll get a little bit of the oak aroma through there, and then a little earthiness there, just a little bit, just a tad, and then back with the dark coffee, and then it really kicks in. The zesty side of it, or pepper side of it, you're really going to get that really on the retro. That's when your senses really start to open up, and you just really start to enjoy this cigar. And then from there you start to get a little bit of the nutty. I'm going to say more of the almond side of things, just a slight smokiness from the almond, and then you definitely start to get into the cedar. Just a tad, just a little bit there. Nutty throughout, very very creamy finish. I paired this. Excuse me. Yeah. Okay. Excuse me. From there, you start to you start to wish there was a little bit more on the finish there as far as the oak and dark coffee, but it really came together well at the end for me on this cigar. The other point to the cigar as well is just the pairing of a beverage. This one here, I actually paired this with a rum, and just to kind of bring out the
straight rum, like straight or with ice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Straight. Yep. Yeah. Get the Zacapa rum.
Ron Zacapa. That's one of Mike Bellity's favorites. FYI.
Yeah. So yeah. I got that out and poured me a good pour on that one, and you really start to really hone in on the smokiness of the cigar, just because your palate gets a little cleansed throughout that process, and then from there it just, like I said, it's just an enjoyable cigar.
The glory days when Mike Bellity would show up to a BYOB shop with a bottle of Ron Zacapa, and I only had another half hour before I would have to be somewhere. FYI, I would call where I had to be and postpone it by an hour or so. True stories, very true stories with that. So, go for it.
So have you had this cigar?
Oh yeah. You've taken. Let me ask this question. You mentioned zest and pepper. I want to spend a little bit of time on that because we have time. And also, what cut did you use? Because that's gonna. I've had it in all three, right? Guillotine, V, and Bullet. The size you had was Robusto, is that correct? It was,
Yeah, I had a
okay,
Robusto,
yep. So have I
Robusto size.
there and whatnot. Because the experience you'll get, but before you give me my answer, right? The experience you get from that stick will vary extremely from guillotine to Bullet. Cat eye, you know, obviously I'm going, you know, smaller hole, medium hole, bigger hole, right there. But what did you use for the cut on that?
I used the guillotine on this one, so on both of them.
Okay,
just because
and you got all of those notes because I think you would have a phenomenal experience if you've had it Bullet.
Bullet, okay, yeah, you know, the guillotine cut for me was just one of those cigars that the cap just looked very, and it could be due to the age of these cigars, but they just seem a little bit fragile at the cap. So yeah, I figured, you know, if I went and did the deep V kit, which is what I normally do with my sticks, I'll use my punch, you know, on the higher vitolas or the bigger rig gauges. But yeah, on this one here, I decided to go with that just because of the way the cap looked. And I didn't want to damage the cigar. I didn't want to have a bad experience with it, and which I did not. But yeah, and I've actually been told online about. I've had other listeners or viewers tell me that they actually tried the cigar with a punch, and you definitely get that. How do you call that? The what? That's what do you call this? What do you call that? Tar, I guess.
The tar buildup. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want want people, when people think tar, they think hot and nasty. And but they were telling me that it never got there, and all they could taste really was just the Maduro wrapper really intensified in the richness in the chocolate. And a lot of them, you know, even said that they got more of a dark chocolate, where I got more of a creamy chocolate. So, and again, it could have been the filler on this, but at the same point, when they're tasting the wrapper, they definitely were saying that if you really want to get that chocolate to really come through, to definitely do a punch.
Yep. Spoiler alert.
I got one more.
No. Spoiler alert on our episode of palatable cigars for significant others. Ooh, there you go. We're gonna have to memorize that for a title, right? This week on Stogie Geeks, palatable cigars for significant others, right? The guillotine makes a big difference too, because even though you say tar buildup, right? Realistically speaking, I judge. This is me, okay? When I say Boxworthy, Oasis, which I think I have one, Fight Chuck Norris, I think I have maybe 6. I even think that's generous, maybe 4 or 5, right? When I bullet cut it and it leaves a tar buildup, remember you have a channel of cigar that of all the smoke that's being inhaled in there, it's going to naturally build up a tout because the canal is not as big. That's basic physics, right? So how I judge a higher rating is when I bullet cut it and I'm really and it gets down to the nub and it doesn't get harsh. And some of them do get harsh. But if I went to straight guillotine, it wouldn't get harsh. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, you know, that's just, again, slowing your cadence down, being aware of what you're smoking, what you like, what you don't like, and away you go.
Yeah, Perdomo, you know, on this one here, I'm going to give my rating on this one. It's definitely going to be a 5-er. And it's not.
All of that for a 5-er?
Yeah, you know, I'm going to give it a 5-er for those who haven't tried it. Get 5. Awesome. Yeah. Get 5 in your, you know, select vitolas, and I'm going to tell you, Perdomo has a big. I mean, I don't know any brick and mortar you don't walk into, and you're just like, wow, look at all these Perdomo cigars, and you're just wowed about what they do there, and just like, you know, for me, it's like, you know. I just get a 5-er of everything when it comes to Perdomo, because there's just so many cigars that he has, and in order to get through the monstrosity of his offerings, which is great, you know, if you want to try different things, different lines from him, different lines from him, you definitely want to be able to get through that comfortably. So. Yeah, 5-er for me, 5 at a time. I do that all day long.
Yep. Yep. Your rating is accurate, I think, for sure. If you would have typed in that cigar, I know I gave it a 5. You can go to StogieGeeks.com for your listeners. StogieGeeks.com, click on Stogies, type that in. Even in the tags, you can separate like which host did which ratings. I would give it a 5. If you rated it higher, honestly, I would have made an effort this week to go back and reevaluate that stick. But man, you built that stick up to be like, I was waiting for the super duper rating, but that's cool. That's all good. You're honest.
I mean, it's a great cigar. I mean, there's nothing wrong. Yeah, it's not just that, there's, like I said, there's just so many. I went through 6 different cigar brick and mortars this week just to go pick up some things, some of the new things.
That's what I call stimulating the economy. Good job.
Exactly. So I went around and everywhere I went, I was like, wow, the stores that I could get into and pick up my own cigars, where they had me a nice tray and I can go through their humidor, by myself. Oh my gosh. I mean, the shelf talkers, the everything Perdomo does as far as marketing goes, you could spend some time there. It's like going when I used to read a lot of books, actually paper books. I used to go to Barnes and Noble and just look at all the different sections, and that's what I liken it to with Perdomo. But you definitely pull out some really excellent titles from there, and but yeah, I mean, if you're like us that smoke cigars quite often and don't stare at them in our humidor and save them for the apocalypse, I think 5 of each throughout the year, you'll be fine.
Cool. Zesty and pepper. You want to spend a little bit of the brief moment on that?
Some time on that.
A brief moment on that, because before I get into mine, zesty and pepper. Before we do that, quick, I just want a yes or no answer, because you and I are not short of words, and this could turn into a 5-minute discussion, right? Have you tried the Perdomo? I think it's 20th anniversary.
Yes.
You've tried both the Maduro and the Connecticut?
I've tried the Connecticut on that one, yes.
Yeah, what do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down, cool, 5? Just quick.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Thumbs up, and a 5 as well. Again, that cigar does take some time to get through.
Size is an issue for me, but it'd be super cool if it was thinner.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not Perdomo, so moving on. I just want to,
I just want to let you know, I've asked Perdomo. I said, hey, would you ever do these in the Lancero or anything like that? And of course, his answer was not right now. He feels like he wants to give all his sticks, some grandeur, in the sizes that they offer. And he was one of the few guys that would say, he just told me not no.
Well, no. Honestly, that's another great point you brought up. Through any generation of Stogie Geeks, whether it was the original generation or if it was, Paul and Coop combo, or me and somebody combo, me and Joe D combo, or me and you combo, Lancero's concept has always come up. Through, it doesn't matter which generation there, has always come up. But you know something? They don't sell. Yeah. And I don't want to say only the true. It's not an elitist thing. You have to be really fanatical about a particular brand and blend for the average consumer to come in and purchase a Lancero. It's just fact. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's nothing that we can do to take away from that. It is what it is, right? So the answer is they wouldn't do that. Now, maybe they roll them for them and enjoy them for them, and then do that there if there's some leftovers or whatever, or maybe it's just strictly business. Maybe, and again, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but maybe it just they don't sell. I'm doing a Lancero now. I'm doing the MLB. What is it called?
The Little Greedy Bastard.
The Little Greedy Bastard.
Yeah, right? Little Greedy Bastard,
which is available exclusively. Am I correct with my homework? Exclusively, that an exclusive for Underground. Yeah, for Underground. Yeah. And when you shipped these to me last week, and I was like, oh yeah, because we had an interview with Mike Bellotti a couple episodes ago, and whatnot. I finally got my hands on them. I'm like, oh, Drew physically walked in and got them, shipped them to me again. So Gustavo, if you're listening, now I'm really fine, right? But you know, and it was so good yesterday. I had to order them. And again, it's a Lancero size, and I'm sure they do good and whatnot, and they have a different saying. But like historically speaking, Lanceros are not where they are, and it's amazing how good most Lanceros are.
Yeah, and you know what? And again, back to Nick real quick. You know, that wasn't a bad answer or anything. To me, that was great because he does what they do. They're great with what they have. You know, what they've built their success on. And the guys like like Mike Bellady and Noel Rojas and I think some of the Calavir Genevieve.
Oh yeah,
they got some Lanceros out there, and I believe and they're great sticks. And you know what? It's a much more difficult task to roll the cigars because they really want to get them perfect. They want to get them to and that's what a Lancero is. I mean, it's basically in that size. It has to be perfect. They have to weight it. They have to make sure it's just the tobaccos are distributed evenly throughout all the sticks that they package, and so the tedious work that goes into the Lancero, I get that, but for them, like they said, this works for us, and the Lancero works great for other people, and either way, like I said, you don't have a bad experience. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I definitely get that.
Awesome. So,
Zesty. Pepper.
Oh my God, we're not even there yet. Oh my God. That's okay. I only have a couple cigars. I'm saying, damn, this is turning into a huge. Go ahead, Zesty, go for it. Zesty versus peppery. That's right.
Zesty for me, yeah. Zesty for me, you get a little zing, on the lips, a little zing on the backside of your tongue, because I'm looking with Zesty. I'm looking for like lemon zest. That's the first thing that comes through mind.
Sure.
And or something of that nature, a little bit of zing, and so when I started to engage in conversations with our fellowship listeners and other people online, there was a lot of information there, different experiences about zest and pepper, and so definitely like pepper for me, I really get those out of like Roma Craft. I mean, that was probably my best cigar for pepper. Not a bomb, but just really just strong in strength, and just really got me where I wanted to be with that cigar. Where with Zest, again, I'm still playing with it, still trying to find that in common with a lot of the different cigars I have.
Cool.
So, but what's your take on that?
What, zest versus peppery?
Yeah.
For me, peppery is a nasal component. Happens a lot. Like if you retrohale and maybe it gets a little bit pungent where you're like, wow, you just get either touch your nose or like, wow, like, whoa, peppery to me is like a in-your-face flavor, for sure. And zesty, it's an accurate description, like you said. It kind of tingles the palate, smoke lingers a little bit more. I would even go as far as saying with zesty, there are components of zesty, and you can go to like freshness of smoke. I know that sounds crazy for a beginner, or maybe for like, what the hell is he doing, right? But no, like you get like a freshness, like that grassy Davidoff grass, like that's fresh. You know what I mean?
Right. And I actually had a discussion with the Davidoff fan. And he was telling me, he goes, man, you really want to get in the zesty. You got to get into some of the Davidoff offerings because you really start to hone in on that, which I got on my homework sheet here to go grab me some Davidoffs just to really get through that and just understand that a lot more, to get the brain, to really recognize that, in the palate. And you're definitely exactly correct about the pepper side, because when I really want, like with the Neanderthal that I smoked with Skip Martin's Roma Craft, man, I can't help it. I got to retrohale that sucker throughout the cigar, pretty, 2 or 3 per thirds. Just because I love it. But
and it's like it's so freaking good. You're like, oh my god,
yeah,
this is
it's
awesome.
an addiction. It's an addiction.
Yeah.
It's an addiction.
That zesty component, like that aha moment for you that you talked about, for that, it's that for me, and the leather component for me.
Yeah.
That makes me say like, holy crap, this is a great smoke. You know what I mean? That's just the way it goes for when I'm describing stuff, you know?
Love it.
Alrighty. Moving on.
Who's been smoking?
Man, I wish that this company, I wish Robert Wright all the success in the world, right? I absolutely positively love the Pura Soul Honduras. And I don't want to send the Stogie Geeks listeners on a wild goose chase, but there are some in the shop that are just lingering around. And I've had a chance to meet Robert Wright, and amazing when it comes to a description of palate, of what people's palates are and profiles. He's done a phenomenal job, in my opinion, of defining cigar smoking into 5 components there, and the rest is elaborated, his words, not mine, podcast substance or magazine written substance, right, and whatnot. But having ran into him multiple times in my sphere of cigars, out of his line, I absolutely love the Pura Soul Honduras. I had Toro. This is a 6x54 wrapper, binder, filler are all Honduras. Complexity on a flavor and balance, as far as a scale of 1 to 10. Complexity, I gave it a 7. Right. I think a lot of that has to deal with the Honduran component. Right. There, flavor and balance, I would give them probably 8.59s for sure. A well-balanced smoke, super cool smoke, bullet cut for me. There, I get a creaminess in the beginning with a little bit of almonds. Towards the end and towards the end of the beginning, start to develop into this spice, and then for me, the spice turned into this meaty, leathery component that I can probably definitely get with a Tatuaje pork tenderloin. but like you get that leathery component for me, and it's one of those sticks. Again, if you happen to track those down, Stogie Geeks, if you can find a box split with a friend, if you can find a box, buy a box, email me, joe@stogiegeeks.com. Johnny knows the app to do the money, right? I'll send you more PayPal money. You can ship it Venmo or Cash App, PayPal. It's a lot easier for me to send you money than for me to give you cigars. I have proven that, all right? Because of the way just my crazy life works, right? But like, if you ever wanted to split up a box with your friend Joe, I'm telling you, super cool idea, super cool box. You won't be disappointed. You got to go on a little bit of a search for them there. But let me tell you something. I haven't ran into Robert Wright multiple times. Super cool guy to get into conversation with. Super cool. Out of all of his offerings, I like that one the best. That's the green label there. And it's box worthy all day long. It's box worthy. I love it. It's a great stick.
Nice. Yeah, I don't believe I've had anything from Robert Wright.
I gotta for me to find it. Yeah, it's been a while since I there, and I came across one because I came across a humidor with some sticks in it that I had stashed, like a big humidor, and I was like, oh my God, I guess I do save. I totally forgot about this thing. And I came across that, and I had one left, and I smoked it, and it's awesome. So that was the Pura Soul Honduras, super cool stick.
Soul.
Pura, Pura Soul Honduras box.
Well, if it's somewhere in Texas, I'll find it. I have my.
You might have to go online They're not,
Oh.
they're probably make your life a heck of a lot easier, for sure.
I got friends with big humidors in Texas. You got to be kidding me. Somebody has them.
There you go. Nice. You have one more stick? I have one more stick. Cool. Then we'll wrap up the segment and get into the other thing.
that's
Cool.
fine.
All right, cool. Go for it.
So my next one, I actually got. Let's see, which one do I want to do? Because
Well, if you have two and you can be quick, you can do two. True.
no, let's. Well, I have a Cohiba that I the Nicaraguan N54, and then I have a Punch Vintage number 20. I don't know when's the last time you had one of those, or if you ever had one of those. But I'm gonna go with the Punch because I'm beginning to gain some traction in the punch lines and so here we go. We had a Punch Vintage number 20 Maduro 5x50, and it's about an $8 stick. And real quick, let me just pan back over to Perdomo. I believe that stick's about a $10 stick, just FYI for all you listeners out there. Punch Vintage are aged and specifically designed cedar cabinets for over a year before they're shipped out. So got my hand on some of these a while back. They're hail from Honduras. The wrapper is Ecuador Sumatra. The binder is Connecticut broadleaf, and the filler is Dominican Honduran. The vitolas they do offer in this, or shapes, as whatever you want to call them. Churchill, they have a double Corona, they have a Gordo, a Lonsdale, a Robusto, and a Toro. Robusto is the one I had, of course. Strength is medium, and man, this cigar did not disappoint. It did not disappoint to the fact that I went back and got me another 6 of these bad boys, because I'm going to have these in my humidor here in rotation throughout the summer, I believe. So again, notes of cocoa, leather. You get that leather component come through, and it just really lingers, in your palate. And like I said, I've been swishing it around and just pushing it out slowly and just getting it agitated to the point where it's giving me the sweetness and balance of the cigar. Coffee and a wood, a little bit of a wood, and I'm not going to say more of a. It's not really a char, but I'm going to say more of a. I'm going to say more of an oak component on this one. I'm still working on this stick, which is why I got me 6 more of these, and it just really provided a nice profile, rich profile with the cigar. Spices are there and you can really get those, in your. I can't say this other word either very well. Umami, yes.
Umami.
Umami. Okay.
That's the last word that Robert Wright uses.
Yeah, and so.
Would you like to describe umami for the listeners, or do you want me to?
It's just a really, for me, the umami in this cigar. It's the center of the palate. So just before it goes to the back of your sour receptors there, just really rich. You can really get the kind of the meatiness of the stick, I guess, the flavor of the stick there. And you have to really practice this if you're going to really try to find those small complexities or nuances in the sticks. From there, then it went to the spices, and then earthy sweetness at the end. I mean, the sweetness was the earthy sweetness there, more of a sweet grass, more to speak. But yeah. This cigar, as I'm going through it, I'm really enjoying it, and for it being that I'm not sure if it's because it's aged before they send it out. You do definitely get some cedar from there, and I'm not sure if that's because it's cured and designed cedar cabinets for over a year before they're shipped out again. But yeah, this stick for me, I mean, definitely it's got me going back. And looking at other punch cigars there as well. And again, not a bad stick. I mean, very good stick. It's an $8 stick in my neighborhood, and it may be $8 plus in your neighborhood. Definitely give this cigar some time to work with, work the palate a little bit. Not to the point of fatigue. I've had some people that that have had this stick, and they were telling me that they got tired of the stick after so many of them, and like, well, you're not supposed to, shouldn't do that, but anyway, I'm not going to tell you how to smoke. If you enjoy it, great. But again, cocoa, leather, coffee, wood, which is probably just a little, like I said, very touch of that, and it may be the cedar sweetness that came through across with the grass, and then some spices, and definitely a good stick there. And I had the Maduro, again, this Punch Vintage number 20 Maduro, and it is available in a Robusto size.
Cool.
And good stick.
I think I had it. I'd have to see the label.
You need to go back and get it again. Well, I'm going to send you some.
Don't send me some until I send you some. Gustavo's going to freaking fall off his rocker if I get batch number 3. Right? He's gonna fall off his rocker. So
hey, who's keeping count? I'm not keeping count.
I am. Are you? What was the rating? Did I miss it?
No, the rating on this, I definitely go half box with someone on the used sticks. And again, I mean, it's a good. It's a good value. I'd box split it all day long with a friend. I know I'll get through these, and I'll make it one of my rotations.
Box split with a friend. Email Drew at StogieGeeks.com. He'll split it with you. I like it. Awesome. There you go. All right. This is my favorite out of the offerings from Esteban Carrera. Mr. Brownstone.
Oh yeah, Mr. Brownstone. I love those.
Mr. Brownstone. I had the Speedball Robusto. Not that we're shocked, right? I had the Robusto. It's a 5x54. It's available in other sizes. Smack, which is 6x52. Mainline 60, which is 5x60. There. Wrapper is a Connecticut broadleaf. Binder is Ecuadorian Habano. And Nicaraguan is filler. Complexity, flavor, and balance. Scale of 1 to 10. Complexity, I gave it a 7. Flavor, I gave it an 8. And balance, I gave it an 8 as well. What I love about this stick is the second half of the stick. Again, bullet cut, totally leather component that comes in towards the end. I know I'm going backwards, right? A leather component that comes towards the end, and it has that umami flavor. And when Robert Wright shoots off his 5 points of flavor profiles that smokers could get of premium tobacco, umami is the last one that he mentions.
Yeah.
And the way he described it to me was that it has that lingering flavor, like wow, like, you know what I mean? Kind of like when you have a buttermilk biscuit, like an old school buttermilk biscuit, and you've eaten the biscuit, but for a while on your palate, a little bit, it's like, man, that was damn tasty. You know what I mean? If you like buttermilk biscuits, but anyway,
who doesn't?
Who doesn't, right? So super cool. There, in the beginning, you get some earthen coffee up to about halfway through. You have it with a coffee. It's awesome. I tried it with Merlot and a Melback. It's not as awesome as coffee, just for pairings, my opinion. There you go. But in regards to rating, I gave it a box split for sure.
Yeah.
My only complaint is that you have to be a surgeon to get it out of its wrapper.
Wow.
Because
that's true.
That's right. Because you buy one, and then if it's time to smoke, it's got the tissue, it's got the footing. You gotta go very, very careful. With the wrapping of that, because it has that wax paper tissue there. Yeah. And the only reason why I'm making it a point of that is because I've had experience of joeing it. You pull the tube out. That's like mistake number 1. That's a great way to waste $9 right there. So you gotta. I'm like, oh boy. Well, look at the way you did that. You like totally Godzilla'd that crap. That's what the cigar patron worker had told me, dude, you totally Godzilla'd that cigar. Like, you, he's like, you got to be careful. And I was like, all right, I'll be careful. Can I get another one? Yeah, sure. Here you go. Frickin', you just ruined this one. You know what I mean? So it comes from experience. But other than that, super cool stick. Definitely have in your rotation. You won't be disappointed. It is super dark when you look at it visually. But it starts off a little strong, but it's doable. It's a medium-bodied stick.
Yeah, it's definitely a toothy cigar for sure. It's got it's got some oils to it.
Yep.
When I smoked the Mr. Brownstone, I actually ever so gently just roll it in my hands between my palms, and get that tissue to warm up, I guess. And then I just peel it off and then just slide off the footband and things of that nature. You're definitely right about that. The other stick I believe is that he has that I've had with that stick. Actually, I had these sticks mid last year, and I got one, I believe, in my humidor now left. But yeah, if you let them age a little bit, let them sit for a little bit, they definitely tend to cure a little bit more, and you definitely get a little bit more strength out of that cigar. But the Chupacabra,
the Chupacabra, yeah.
Yeah. That was another stick of mine of his offerings that I really enjoyed. And same thing, just a very toothy, little oily stick, and it just really comes together clean. I've had that stick with. Actually, I've had that stick with. I had a coffee liqueur with that stick. Oh my goodness, man! It just really brought out those spices. To me, it had some baking spices. I'm talking about the stick about the Mr. Brownstone with that, and I had some liqueur cream with that coffee, and I did what they call chinita. You take the coffee, and you have to dirty out quite a few dishes to make this, and you get the cream, and you just let it pour together and let it mix. Don't stir it, just let it mix together as you're pouring, and it just comes really nice and gets a little creamy froth on top on its own, and then definitely light up the stick and enjoy that.
Fancy pants.
I'm telling you, brother.
Who the hell has time to make a chinita? Is that what you called it?
That's what I call it. Yes. Hey, when you really want to have an experience, boy, you just pull out the dishes and of course clean up before you come out to the cigar. Because the wife will say, "Well, where's mine?"
Oh, it's that good.
Oh, it's delicious. It's
a chinita.
Sweet. Oh yeah.
Oh,
you can make different variances with this, with different cream liqueurs, or just straight up mix the honey with the cream, a little honey, or a little agave with the cream. Just get it. I got one of those Nespresso machines with the a frother, so it has you can do it cold or hot, just depends on what you like. And oh my God, just mix that up together, pour that with the coffee, you're set. So not only do you get a kick in the ass from the cigar, as far as you get, you got the strength there, but then you also get the coffee buzz on top of that, and you just can't go wrong.
Chinitas with Drew. That's an episode.
Yes.
It'll be like one of those cartoons, you have all the dishes, the balance in the dishes or whatever, and we got to do a chinita. Can you email me just some concepts of that? I would like to put that together for a show.
You gotta go out and buy. You gotta buy some hard, some coffee ware for sure. If you want to do this right, I guess you could do it in glasses, but I just like to pull out the
fine china.
Oh. This stuff that
you only use on Thanksgiving. What? I'm sorry. What?
The stuff that we buy and that we don't use. Or we use it as not a gravy boat, but just for whenever company's over. I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and dirty up the dishes. Yeah. But hey, it's a great experience. Got time. Especially now.
Yeah. Well, now life should be slow enough to enjoy your chinitas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely send you some.
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm serious. Chinitas. I'll be like, yo. I'm gonna do that. Awesome, awesome. Before we wrap up this segment, I want to remind you that if you go to StogieGeeks.com, click on the McAuliffe logo, you can join their very extremely active ambassador channel that is on Facebook, and you get some benefits there to become a McAuliffe ambassador. Get to learn all about McAuliffe cigars. They do a ton of interview series on there, and there's some super cool contests that they have for ambassadors there. And I'm very happy to see that McAuliffe ambassadors are very active on that channel. There you can sign up, you and meet new friends, talk tons away. And during this time, they have a very aggressive scheduling in regards to what's going on that active channel. It all starts when you go to StogieGeeks.com and click on the McAuliffe logo over there. And we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, Drew and I are going to talk about what's been going on. We'll be right back.
Plasencia Cigars, perfected for more than 150 years. Yours to enjoy now.
Welcome back to Stogie Geeks, episode 329. I am your host, Stogie Geeks. Woo! That's nice. That Tangerine Tonic's doing just well. I am your host, Joe Hozempa. I am finally back after 62 days. I am in studio with our co-host, Little Doc Kid from Texas, Mr. Drew Gavin. And right now, Drew and I have the opportunity to interview Noel Rojas. Noel has worked with some of the hottest boutiques in the world. He has helped create some of the most flavorful and sought-after cigars. That is an understatement. Good news for us, Stogie Geeks, is that he has his own brand, Rojas Cigars. It's the king of the small gauge cigars. If you go to stogiegeeks.com/329, you will be able to click to Noel and catch him on his social media and find out what he's been up to. Noel, welcome to the show. How are you?
Great, thanks. Thank you for having me today. I'm in my garage right now, so the background shouldn't be that pretty, but I do have some really beautiful tobacco here on my left.
There you go. That's awesome. Look at that. Tobacco layer. I like it. I like it. Drew, say hi to Noel.
Hey, Noel. How you doing, sir?
Good, brother. Good to see you again.
I just want to say, Noel, I had ordered some blue bonnets from Texas, and they're being shipped as we speak.
Very cool.
Oh, I'm super excited. Drew sent me those, and I was like, whoa, where did you get these? And then I was like, Noel, I interviewed him in the beginning of my career here at Stogie Geeks. For you Stogie Geek listeners out there, if you want to hear how Noel got started in the industry and all about his story and all of that and how he began, all you have to do is go to episode 226. So you can type in episode 226 or Noel Rojas. It'll come up in the search function, and you can hear all about that. But today, I want to talk about, his projects that he's worked on, what it was like working with other vendors, and about being the category king of the small gauge cigars. We're going to talk a little bit about the blends, what he's got coming up for upcoming releases, and the future, and maybe if we have some time, a little bit about the industry as to where we are. So, Noel, welcome to Stogie Geeks. How are you?
Great, thanks. It's really a pleasure to be with you guys here today. Let me see if you can see me better there.
Oh, you're adjusting the thing? Gotcha. So, Drew, do you have a question for Noel?
No, I was just going to,
No, and then you always say, yeah.
I swear to God, I said to myself, don't say no, just say yeah. So, no, I was just, I'm very excited, Noel, about your KSG offering that just came out this year. And I actually went down to, what was that, Michael's. Went down to Michael's over in Euless and picked up a few sticks from Tracy down there and Joe and, just got some of those sticks. And, man, talking about a great stick, along with the statement and with the blue bonnets as well. But, no, I just wanted to congratulate you on that and just let's talk about the KSG.
Yeah, is that the latest blend that has come out, Noel?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the latest cigar that I actually make is the KSG. Just I'm smoking it right now.
Yes, sir.
It's when I start planning on the release of the Rojas line in general sense, right? I did took a lot of thinking and planning in order to come out with that particular brand. One of the first thing that I was thinking about was, how to what will be the first limited release that I was going to do with that particular cigar. So I decided to put aside some tobacco from the very first crop of the Somoto Valley, which is the new region of Nicaragua that I'm using the tobacco from. And from the very first crop, which was a virgin soil, I set aside about 15 bales, mixed between Visos and Ligeros, that I wanted to use for the first release. Then I looked for a really good wrapper that was well aged. It's a Ecuadorian Habano wrapper, Maduro. And as you can see, for being a Maduro, it actually burns, really well. Maduro wrappers, especially the Habano Maduro wrappers, you have to be careful with it sometimes because it doesn't, if it's not well aged, doesn't burn what they call razor sharp. So this is actually from the first crop of the Somoto Valley. There's some tobaccos also from other regions of Nicaragua, but it's mostly tobacco from Somoto. And the one thing that people summarize in general sense when they smoke it, it's a strong cigar, but it's a smooth and it's very creamy. So that's what I mostly get. That's what mostly I get people talking about it when they smoke it.
Yeah, I've had this cigar, Noel. Like I said, in the last couple of weeks, I went down and tried to get them over at Don's place over there at Underground, but they were already out of them. So then I had to go to Michael's and grab those. But I wanted to get my hands on them. You're definitely right about that. It features a rich and it's just a very rich, creamy tobacco. That's offered in a 7.5 by 38 classic Lancer size, and I'll tell you, the binder and the filler that gets finished with a 5-year-old Ecuadorian Madonna wrapper leaf definitely transitions well throughout the cigar. So in that, and knowing that, so when you set aside the 15 bales for this. Was this a project that was already in your mind that this is where it needed to go? This is where I wanted to offer in this KSG stick?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to do something with that tobacco from the first crop, special because it was a virgin soil. Nobody planted tobacco in that particular region before. So that soil was virgin. And there is so many things that goes into that particular soil that add to the tobacco that I don't think we will ever be able to get it again just because of the complexity of, all the nutrients on the soil. That I said, we need to set aside at least 15 bales to do a couple of releases after time goes through. I'm planning on doing releases from that particular tobacco 15 years from now, or 7 years from now. Things I wanted to make these small batches, release it out, and see 7-10 years from now how that tobacco is going to taste like. So that's the whole thing behind the KSG and the limited releases. We only made 5,000 cigars.
Yeah.
Lanceros, as you can know. It's like a Lancero doesn't have too much tobacco on it. So we didn't use that much tobacco to make that 5,000 cigars on the filler, per se. But it's definitely something really creamy and smooth, and it's going to get better with the time. That's for sure.
Noel, I have a bunch of questions. When I first interviewed you, if you were going to go back into a time machine, right? It was March of 2017, right? I began my Stogie Geeks journey as a host here at Stogie Geeks January 2nd of 2017. And I've been on ever since. And following you, you remind me when you do your blending and hearing episode 226 of Stogie Geeks, you remind me of, and there's probably 3 other people that I could name that I would put you into this category, where you do small batches of cigars that are extremely tasty, really complex, and sought after, right? People like search for them, right? They go to your particular vendors where they're available, and they seek after them. And then over the past, and again, exposed to me, let's say calendar year, you've dubbed yourself king of the small gauge cigars. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I think that's very important there as well. But you remind me of like a scientist when it comes to the tobacco, right? And so my really quick question is, it's a 2-part question. First is, what goes on in your head when you want to create a blend? So you had this crop of virgin soil. What goes on in your head as far as like the tasting components of what you're searching for? And then my second question is, you mentioned 15 bales, right?
Yes.
What does that yield in cigar sticks, so that the Stogie Geek listener and myself can kind of wrap themselves around like the how many cigars does that make, just to let the Stogie Geek listener know that if they are interested in this blend, like, you have to act now, because it's not going to be available for a long time because of the demand for your product. Does that make sense?
Well, what we're using for the limited edition cigars, it's just that particular crop from the first plantation. But I mean, the stamens, the blue bonnets, the street tacos that are coming very soon. We will be releasing very soon. Everything is it's also tobacco from Somoto. It's just, the very first crop we got, we put that 15 bales aside to make the, limited releases as the year passes. It does kind of fly out of the shelves, because with this very first release, we only made 5,000 cigars.
Okay.
And we're probably right now we're probably in a quarter of the inventory. 3/4 of the inventory have been already sold, and people are just reordering as they try it out, because I mean it's a really good cigar. I really like it. Now, in terms of how many cigars I will be making with that 15 bales through the years, it all depends on the sizes. But based on the smaller sizes we made, well, that would be math that I will have to do real quick. But
That's awesome. This is Stogie Geeks Classics right here.
So,
and the reason why I'm asking, just as you're doing your calculations, the reason why I'm asking is it puts the business model, the fluid business model that you have, is to create. It's almost like lightning strike events that we call within the industry. Like, I'm producing this batch, and there's only going to be X amount of cigars. We're about to get the X, right? And that's it. And then it's going to change. And I think that with that type of consumer behavior, it's going to raise the demand, right? Of, holy crap, I better get the cigar now.
yeah, like based on the size, weight we make per cigars, so one bale, which is around 100 pounds, that is 45,359 grams.
This is awesome. True.
It is.
Into an average of, let's say, between Coronas and 50s and Lanceros, let's put an average of 15 grams. I mean, during the past of the year, per bale, we will be making.
Uh-oh. He hit the button with his hand. Oh, no.
Call him back.
There you go. You must have hit the
There he
button
is.
with
There
your
you
cell
are.
phone. Yeah.
So somebody called me.
Oh, okay. That'll do it.
Entre, entre. So we're looking at an average, depending on the weight of the cigar.
Yep.
I would say 3,239. I would say between 3,000 to 4,000 cigars per bale.
Gotcha.
It all depends with the blending. You know how much tobacco I use from that particular source, which is 90%. Usually, I just add a little bit to it if I need to balance it out or add some more complexity to it. But that's an average for cigars. So that's per bale. So that times
15 is 45,000 cigars.
Yeah.
well, you're better than math than me. I have to use the calculator.
Noel, I can't turn it off. Every time I interview someone on Stogie Geeks, I always try to get to what's in their head for the blend, right? And like what you're trying to create taste-wise for us for us consumers. And I'm trying to get a handle of the business model of the brand owner of who I'm interviewing, because it changes, right? So if you have 45,000 sticks total over the course of 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, or whatever, for just this particular blend from this particular harvest of the virgin soil, right? The demand for the product is sky high. Like, I mean, I am like, I found myself ordering cigars from a vendor in Texas, Underground Cigar Shop, to get to your consumer, because it doesn't even get to us here, me geographically, who's sitting here in the Northeast. It just doesn't even happen because you have enough demand down there and away you go. Which I think from a business model, it creates a fluidity of demand. So people are like, wow, everything this guy touches is freaking tasty. Like it's tasty. Like I remember I lit up a blue bonnet. I always knew of you, obviously, from being in the industry. And then I tasted the blue and I'm like, Drew, what? This is amazing. And then I was like, and then I just called Drew and said, I had a blue bonnet. And he's like, oh, well, that's Noel. I'm like, Noel Rojas? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, no wonder why. It's amazing. You know what I mean? And then there are other sticks as well, and we can get into them and whatnot. But the point of the conversation is to give for us to know, okay, great, we got 45,000 sticks over the course of that particular blend. You have other blends going on. Okay, great, that's awesome. But what goes on in your head, like when you have a flavor profile in your head, of what you want it to taste like? Can you take us through that process?
Sure. I mean, I will have to start saying that basically, putting aside cigars, I grew up in Cuba under a communist system, a single mom that raised me. We were really poor. And I remember my mom always was kind of laughing at me and saying, you have a rich man's palate and we eat rice and beans every day. I was trying to find a way always to add complexity to whatever we were cooking, or it was just something that, I couldn't get used to bad flavors in my mouth. And you know what I'm saying? This is since I was a kid. I learned to cook back in Cuba and, use all type of spices and things like that. And, when I think of myself, and how I actually do the blends. And this is, that's what I'm talking, going back to the Cuban thing. it's, I always wanted to feel complexity. I have an appreciation for something that tastes good in general sense, not just cigars, but food and everything that goes into it. When I think about blending, I think about cooking. It's kind of the same process.
Mm.
Yeah.
I taste all my ingredients independently. I say, okay, this is garlic, onions, this, and this. And I start cooking. I start tasting. I said, I think a little bit of cinnamon, for example, would add to it, or black pepper, or red pepper, or so many things that I actually get to taste for the first time here in the States. Since I came in, because there's so many spices that people in Cuba don't have access to, and they don't know, and you don't really know that those flavors actually exist. And it's kind of the same process when I'm blending, right? I just taste independent tobaccos, and I say, okay, this is how, for example, Jalapa tastes like. This is how Peruvian, and I always, since I was in Nicaragua, I always wanted to try new things and different things, not just Nicaraguan tobacco, but in general sense, Peruvian tobacco, Ecuadorian tobacco, Mexican tobacco, German tobacco, Colombian tobacco. I always wanted to try different things. And as I tried those things, I put everything together in my head, and I said, you know what? This particular tobacco from Peru can actually taste really good if we add a little bit spicy and pepper with tobacco from Esteli, or if I add some earthiness and sweetness with tobacco from Condea, or the creaminess that comes from the Corojo Dominican tobacco that I use from the Reyes family in Dominican. And as it's that's what really amazed me, is how much different flavors and combination you can actually get when you're blending cigars and when they're blending tobacco. Because this is something so special for me. That's another thing that I will be sharing with you. I actually have a product that I'm almost nailed down, and right now it's in production, just working on the packaging and things like that, where I want to allow the consumer to have the same experience that blenders and manufacturers have when they're blending cigars. And I created a product that I think is going to be a very revolutionary idea for the cigar industry, and it's going to change the way people actually understand cigars and prefer to smoke cigars, and it's going to mostly help people to understand what they like and what they don't like about cigars and tobacco in general sense.
Yeah, I was going to say to that, back in January, Noel, I actually happened upon, I was going out, scavenging cigars, and I was out at Lakewood Cigars back in January on the 18th, to be specific, and I just happened upon you had a program there going on, an event where you were explaining all these different processes from the seedling all the way through production of these cigars, being rolled, and what you're saying right now just kind of ring that back in my mind. So are you doing more of these? I called it an education symposium or seminar to the consumer. Is that something that you're going to continue with throughout Rojas Cigars?
Yes, that's definitely the core of the Rojas line. So, what I'm trying to build with my new rebranding of everything that I have been done, it's actually set the tone of the Rojas brand. Mostly like the brand that is gonna really invest on creating more educated consumers. And the one thing that impressed me when I first came to the state, I started rolling cigars in the stores, talking to consumers, and you will think that the guy who have been smoking cigars for 15 years, he knows that actually cigars are made by hand, or the way that cigars are made. And surprisingly, uh, it some of them don't know. I mean, I have been making events, rolling cigars in stores, and people that have been smoking cigar for 10 years approached the table and said, "Hey, what is that?" Well, that's tobacco. And that's what you put inside of the cigar. Yeah. And that's how you roll them. Yes. So they will think that these cigars are made even by hand, or I mean, there's a lot of uh, disinformation out there per se,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of people that doesn't know. So I said, we really need to focus on creating a more educated cigar specialist, not somebody that just know how to light up a cigar, which is the majority of the videos that I have seen online. I want to be able to create people that at least have 80% or 70% of the knowledge that a manufacturer might have when it comes to judging how a cigar is made, how it tastes, how it burns, the construction, the ash, everything that goes into it. And we're going to be the pioneering company that is going to invest on teaching the consumer everything. So, and it's not going to be like, well, this is why my cigars are so good, buy my shit kind of thing. It's going to be, we're mostly going to just teach consumers in general sense. I'm not going to tell them that my cigars is better than. I mean, I never said my cigars are better than. They're just different.
Right.
And what I want to teach the consumer is to be able to recognize between a really good cigar and an average cigar by experience and by knowledge with all these educational products that I will be putting out. So by themselves, they can see the difference between one of my cigars and, against any other cigar that they can smoke up there, and see, that they can apply the knowledge to whatever cigar they're smoking and decide whether one cigar is better than the other or not, instead of being influenced by a magazine that is advertising, like a $18,000 ad in a magazine that is telling him that cigar is better than the older cigar that is cheaper, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. It's a smart move. It's a smart move because if you're not pushing cigars from the magazine or from video or whichever, and you're pushing cigars based upon merit or efforts or complexity of the palate or complexity of the cigars or the superior product, it makes you really independent to kind of pivot anywhere you want to when it comes to other cigars, as opposed to saying, wow, we have all these cigars and this is what sells and this is what's good and this is what makes money and we're going to stick with this and then move on. I think it's a great, it's an interesting business model. And that's why I kind of put you in that category of that kind of mad scientist who builds something that the people want and the people want to seek after and then go after and to consume the cigars. Because one of the lasting components that I've tried with the limited amount that I've had, and again, everything that I have to consume from here, being up in the Northeast, is from me seeking out and going to kind of pull the product towards me and fight for the right to get it, if it's available and all of that stuff. I really think that, it creates a big demand for that. Have you been, you've obviously been to trade shows. I'm sure that your booth must be busy. It's kind of like if you know about you, then like your customers and brick and mortar shops who know about you, you're like the best kept secret, right? Because people really want to try those cigars and they sell out of them and they move off the shelf. What do you do to talk to the people who might not know? Like if you were trying to get like a new vendor or something like that, well, what do you say? Taste this, and then you let the product speak for itself. And if you're interested, great. And if you're not, then I'll sell it anyway, right? I think that's awesome.
Well, I tell you this, any type of business in general sense, You have all the steps. You have the whoever manufactures cigar, whoever wholesale it, whoever retail it, and then whoever sell it to a retail. Right there is a chain. Um, I think as important as it is to make a good cigar, you also need a good and a strong distribution point. You need people to go out and sell the cigars, and in most of the cases, there is a lot of good cigars out there made by boutique companies that they're not in every shop just because they don't have a good distribution channel.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all infrastructure that goes in the back end of the business in order to be able to deliver the product to the stores and get people talking and selling the cigars to the stores. Cigars come from Nicaragua, stay here in Texas, and then it depends on the sales rep or the ability that we might have to get to the store owner and give him one of the cigars to try it out in order to get that distribution going on. Now, I remember about 7 years ago when I first started on this business. I was just fresh out of the boat, per se. I was 5 years since I came from Cuba. So I started on the business. I barely speak the language. My English was kind of okay, not that good. And as I was getting into the industry, I started meeting really good people and making good relationship with great people on the industry. Between them, there's one guy that I have a ton of admiration for. It's Nestor Miranda,
Mm.
the
Yep.
owner of Miami Cigars.
Yep.
And I remember, on my first events talking to Nestor, I said, Nestor, how can I get to where you at right now? What was the process that you went through? And Nestor, I love that guy, man. He's always super humble, always laughing, always playing domino. I mean, he's a classic Cuban guy, Cuban American guy with style. And he said to me, it's very simple. You just take a picture of yourself, give it to your wife or your girlfriend, tell her that she's going to see the picture for the next year, get into your car, and start driving all around the country selling cigars. So that was kind of the advice he gave me. Just forget everybody that you know. Just live in your car, start traveling around, and open all the accounts that you can open.
Yeah.
I think that's the model that used to work in the past before social media. So I did that. I jumped in my car and I started traveling all around the country from Miami all the way to New England, Michigan, Wisconsin. I mean, I have traveled the whole U.S. Selling my cigars back in the past with the brands that I have in the past. I did open a lot of accounts. There was a moment we have like 250 accounts, 280 accounts with my old brands that I discontinued, the Y accounts, I was still all of that. But it's not just distribution and the machine that goes in the back trying to make sure those cigars get to the to customers. There is also a communication problem that I have back in that time with the consumer and the brand. And you can open as many accounts as you want on the business side of it, and you can have the best cigars ever. But it's the message from the brand to the consumer is not clear enough. The consumer has a really hard time understanding what the brand is and what it stands for, and what the brand is doing for him. So my biggest problem was that I had some amazing cigars. Still, people look for those cigars, and whenever they can get it, they get it. There's only a few left out there of my old brands. But I have names that most of the people couldn't even remember. Sabor de Estelí, Guayacan, Roja Reserva. And then they were all good cigars, but they were just, the same cigars everybody's doing in general sense, per se, sizes and things like that. So it was really difficult for the consumer to actually attach a category or a way of thinking or a particular um, thing to attach to the brand. That's what I decided. As I learned more about the market, because one thing is knowing how to make good cigars, another thing is knowing how to market those cigars to the people, so you have a clean communication with them. I started, analyzing what are the biggest companies out there, which is obviously the companies that has the best, clear, simple message to the consumer to what the brand stands for. Uh, that was when I decided to said, we have to do something different. I have to do something different if I really want the people to understand what I do and what the brand stands for. And that's what I created the Rojas line. Um, I didn't want to be all cigar for all people. I didn't want to be the same cigar everybody's doing. So what do you need? You need be the specialist on one particular category of the industry, and you need to have something different. What is the category of the industry nobody wants to specialize or be the master on per se? Is the small ring gauges, and the why is because it's the most difficult cigar to make. A regular bonchero can make 350, 400 cigars in couple in a factory a day of a regular cigar over 50 gauge. If it's thicker, like a 70, they can make 450 if they want to. I mean, there's so much physical space on that cigar that, in any way that you put the tobacco in, you're always going to get some draw. The most difficult cigar to make are the cigars actually that are made on a smaller gauges, and they can only make about 250 cigars a day, especially on lanceros. So you see the big difference?
Mm-hmm.
Making a small cigar that is skinnier, that have less tobacco, versus making a 60 gauge, which is a thicker cigar, you can actually make less cigars making lanceros. And it's only the experienced boncheros that can actually make that cigar. It's very difficult to make. And there is a process. You have to, we have a certain way that we make the cigars that they have to follow that in order to get the cigars made properly. And I said, well, this is what I'm going to specialize. It's going to be a small gauges. That was the most difficult task I ever wanted to do. And it has been a headache, to be honest, to get the things done in the right way. I mean, the very first batch of the Rojas, which is the Rojas statement, right? One day, I went to the factory and I started checking on some Coronas that were made. And for some reasons, the person that's supposed to check the weight of those particular cigars, I mean, that 1 or 2 days he was sick, he wasn't there, somebody else was doing it. And I said, let me check on the production. I got about 3,000 cigars plucked, 3,000 Coronas that they were completely plucked. And the thing is, the weight on those particular cigars, in a 70 gauge, a 60 gauge, you can defend on the weight 1-2 grams. I mean, you can still get some good draw out of that cigar. But in a 46 gauge, if you're over 1 gram, you're in trouble. And over or under. So we only allow 0.5 grams per cigar, which is almost nothing, in order to get the perfect draw out of that cigar. So we have to recheck those cigars again, make sure we didn't send cigars that were plucked, and make a stronger system to check on the quality of the cigars when they were coming out of the rollers, and in order to avoid something like that from happening. On the other hand, the smaller gauge cigars will always be the cigars that deliver most of the flavors. And this is not just because I say so, like some people might argue about quality, which is it's a subject that you can say this cigar is better than, or that cigar is better than. It's just what you think. What I always says is instead of quality, I'm talking about physical things that can apply to cigars that whoever made the smaller gauge cigars, if it picked the right tobaccos, it always gonna be more flavorful than any 60 or 70 gauge or 52 gauge ever. And the why is because the same is a physical explanation that is very simple to understand. 80% of the flavor of the cigar comes from the wrapper. You guys follow me?
Follow me? Totally.
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So 80% of the wrapper, 80% of the flavor in the cigar comes from the wrapper. Now, the wrapper is always a half leaf of tobacco. With that half leaf, you can roll a Lancero, which is a 7x38, that skinny cigar, or you can roll a really fat 70-80 cigar. Something really fat. Now, the ratio between a bigger gauge cigar versus wrapper and a smaller gauge cigar versus wrapper, it tends to be bigger on the percentage of the flavor you get from the wrapper on the smaller gauge because you're going down on the gauge. So you can actually taste more of the wrapper. And the thing is the same amount of wrapper you will be using for both cigars. It's just what is called the overlap. So in a 70 gauge, the overlap of the leaf on the wrapper, when you do the turns of the cigar, as you roll the cigar, the overlap that you see the turns on a 70 gauge, for example, might be like this. When you make a 38 gauge, you are getting almost a double wrap cigar because the overlap is really thick. So you're getting the same amount of wrapper, no matter the size of the cigar, and you're getting more percentage of flavor in a cigar that is a smaller gauge.
Yeah, I was gonna say with just basic physics, you're getting double the flavor.
Exactly.
Yep.
Now the other thing that's just on the wrapper, right? Now the other thing is the fillers. When you're making a cigar, you pick your Visus, your Ligeros, your Seco. You can make a blend with one Ligero, two Visus, and one Seco. That's 4 leaves. Right there, you have all the complexity you want, all the strength you want, all the flavor you want, and you're barely in a 48 gauge. Now, you have the Ligeros that give you the strength, you have the Visus that give you the flavor, and you have the Seco that help with the combustion. If you really want the meat, you can just use Visus and Ligeros. I mean, the combustion, the Seco help with the combustion, but if the Visus and Ligeros are well fermented, they will be burning like gunpowder. So you can actually make a cigar with one Ligero and 2 Visus. Could be 2 different regions of Nicaragua or Ecuador or whatever you want to make it. And with 3 leaves, you're looking at a 38 to 42 gauge cigar, depending on the length of the tobacco, the size of the tobacco, whether it's big leaves, medium leaf size, small leaves. It all depends. But based on that, with 3 leaves, you already have a super flavorful cigar that is going to deliver all the flavor in the world. Now, when you are making cigars and you have already determined the blend, what do you do to get to a 60 gauge? Well, there's many ways to do it. You can just start adding Seco, which is the tobacco from the lower prime of the plant. That is just going to keep the blend the way it is and add size to the cigar. It doesn't mean that you're getting more flavor, though. It's just, it's a burger that you're just putting that burger into a big bread. You follow me there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so this is a great, a phenomenal explanation of what goes on in your head, because you're creating the product, and it's in your head as to how they're going to construct it, much like the recipe, how you're going to construct it, and how it's going to affect the taste for those who consume it.
Exactly. Let's say, and this is a metaphor, right? Let's say you're making a burrito. And you said, I'm going to make a burrito and this is for the filler. I'm gonna make a burrito, and I'm gonna use some prime steaks, right? Prime steaks is what have the flavor. So you grill the steaks, you cut the steaks, the little fajitas, you put it inside the burrito, and when you're going to twist it, it's very skin. And you say, you know what? I want something bigger. How can I do that? So you start adding, lettuce, tomatoes, wherever you can add to the burritos, beans, cheese, and all of that in order to get a bigger size. As you increase that, you're actually losing the flavors of the steak. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
or like a burger, right? So if you compare that to making a cigar, what is the steak of the cigar? What is what really have the flavors?
which is the wrapper.
It's exactly. But
Yep.
now we're just talking about the filler. Okay, we're talking about the wrapper first. Now we're talking about the filler. So in the filler and binder, what is the steak? And that's the visos and the ligeros. Ligero for strength, viso for flavors. So once you have the steak, unless you actually want to go to a bigger gauge, then you still add more to it. But when you have one ligero and two visos, one seco, which is, as I said, depending on the size, could be up to a 48 gauge with just 4 leaves. You don't need anything else. I mean, if you really want the steak, if you really want to taste the steak, adding more of it is not going to make it more flavorful, though. It's just going to make it more of the same. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
So-
is why when people smoke the cigars, it sometimes it's like, it's like whichever blend, it doesn't matter, or brand, they're like, it's just like the so and so, or it's just like this
Exactly.
other cigar and whatnot. As
And I
opposed,
tell you, if you ever want to make the what I call the Rojas challenge, the test, get one of my cigars in the smaller gauge that you can find, a 38 gauge, like for example this one, or any other cigar out there that I make on the 50 gauge, which is the Rojas one, and smoke that cigar against any cigar on the market that is over 50 gauge, and I bet $100 that my cigar is gonna burn at the same speed or lower. It's gonna take you, in some cases, even more time to smoke a skinny Lancero than a 60 gauge. And the reason is because the tobaccos that I put inside these cigars are very thick tobaccos that produce a tremendous amount of smoke and flavor and burn really slow. It's, going back to the physical mass. Visos and ligeros are the thickest tobaccos. They burn slower. They give you a colder smoke. The seco, which is the leaf on the bottom of the plant, which is most of those cheaper cigars that you see online, that seco just burns fast and doesn't really give you a lot of strength of flavor or complexity. I mean, that's just, it helps with the combustion, but it's not a tobacco that have the meat per se. And these cigars are made with what I call the steak of the tobacco, which is filler and binder. And then on top of that, you add the 80% of the flavor coming from the wrapper. You being able to smoke more wrapper on a smaller gauge than in a bigger gauge. That's why these cigars are so flavorful. And to my surprise, in the past, when I used to travel all around the States and sell my cigars, you always have the question. You always have people that you're making an event. They will come to the event and they will ask you, okay, what made your cigars different from the rest of the cigars inside of the humidor? If you add that question to most of the brands out there, even some of the bigger brands, they won't have a way to explain it different. They will just, talk about the quality of the tobacco. Okay, but as consumers, we are all tired of every single product and service we usually consume on a regular basis. Everybody said they have the best product, right? So it's you will find some other brands out there not to have an answer for that particular question, saying, like I did, for example, in the past. they will ask me, okay, what made your cigars different than anybody else? I mean, I can talk about the quality all day long. Everybody talks about the quality. Everybody have the same the best wine, or the best shoes, or the best whiskey, or the best, whoever makes something, they said, they have the best of the best. But I couldn't say that my cigars were different from the rest, because they were not. I mean, they were in a certain way, the way that I blend the cigars, but it's kind of, similar, but not completely different. What we're doing now, which is completely different, the smaller gauges only, is very simple communication between the brand and the consumer. What made your cigars different? Which is the question that I get now. Why these cigars are different from the rest inside of that humidor, where we make only small gauges. That's a big difference, number one. And number two, you're going to get way more flavor out of these cigars than anything you smoke out of there. So it's not based on quality. I never talk about quality. I'm talking about the type of product we're doing and we specialize on, which is the smaller gauge cigars that they deliver the most flavorful that you can get out of the cigar. I mean, that is something that is based on knowledge and physical things that you can actually prove just by looking at it. It's not arguable. And you guys know, when you go to cigar lounge, or the people that smoke regular cigars on a regular basis, you don't see those guys smoking a 70 or a 80 gauge. Most of the guy who really knows about cigars, they don't go over a 52 gauge or a 50 gauge. The people who knows, they smoke Coronas.
Yep. This episode, Drew and I did our sticks of the week and talking about them and all of that stuff. And a topic that always comes up for me is that I often review sticks that are Toro's the biggest, right? But mostly for me, I love the Robusto, I love the Corona, double Corona size, and I completely love to see the blends that are out there in the Lancero size. Like that, I'm like, oh my god! Like if you try this stick in a Lancero, it's so much more tastier than the other one. So almost, I don't want to say every episode, but probably 80%, right, Drew? 80% of or so, it comes up with the smaller ring gauge. And you make a great point, right? The consumer who goes into the shop, or the person, the guy or gal who has the smaller ring gauge, is the one that really knows. Like, I rather smoke 2 or 3 Robustos than one big cigar. You know what I mean? And because I just truly enjoy the actual taste of the cigar. And if you smoke a Robusto or a Corona size or whatever, it should be about the same time. You just got to slow down your cadence. Most consumers think, oh, the bigger cigar, I'm getting more for my money. You know what I mean? And they're not. And I think you did a phenomenal job of describing how we get those taste components. It's knowledge that I'm going to use moving forward when I review cigars, for sure.
Yeah. I wanted to add to that was that when I was smoking the KSG stick yesterday, and actually right now before Noel popped on, I just got finished with that. That stick. I mean, I was surprised the other day when I timed myself. I hit my timer, and it took me an hour and 20 minutes to get through it, and that's with going back to the cigar every 45 to a minute and a half, segment between draws. And you're absolutely right. I mean, whether I smoked my regular 50 gauge or my Robusto size cigars versus the Lancero, I was more pleasured at this point with the small ring gauge size, and I got so much out of it. I mean, this stick put me in a euphoria of enjoyment, relaxation. I mean, the medium, the body of the cigar really came through as what I would think that Noel had in mind for the cigar. And when I talk to others who have already enjoyed KSG or even the Blue Bonnet or the Statement, felt the same way with those 3 lines. Are very consistent with that. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. And as far as educating the consumer, for myself, when I talk to a consumer at a cigar lounge or on our social media platforms, they ask us questions. Why is it that we get this better flavor? Why is it that we get, bang for the buck? I guess if you want to put it that way. And again, like I told them, I said, again, it's a personal preference, but with being that you are really concentrating on small gauge ring uh, cigars, uh, you're really honing in on a product offering that really is well balanced, well thought out, and then from there it speaks for itself. If you're a connoisseur, or even a beginning connoisseur, I mean, this is a great time to take time and not really compare, but just think about your overall experience from that, what you're trying to achieve out of that hour, 45 minutes, or what have you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Noel, I would love to have you come back and discuss a little bit more. So don't be a stranger. But before we let you go for this interview, I want to talk to you a little bit about like the future of like where you're going company wise and all of that. Are you looking to keep it with the same business model and concentrate really on the ring gauge size, what you've been doing there, or are you looking to I don't want to say expand, because that's really not a part of the business model, but 2-3 years down the road, are you looking to make a bigger presence and get those distribution channels a little bit bigger to be a little bit more across, or are you going to stick with the same? Because every time I talk about you to my circle of friends, they're like, oh, those cigars are hard to get. I'm like, well, in this day and age, they're not really that hard to get. You just have to order online through a local brick and mortar. Usually it's in Texas, right? I know you're available in South Florida as well, in there as well. So, what are you looking at as far as the future? As far as blends, or are you going to continue on the same path that you're on?
So, about that, as I was telling the story about me traveling all around the states and mingle with the stores and talking to them about my product, I realized something, right? There's so much that you can cover in one day. I have to have 10 copies of myself to be able to go visit all these accounts and then still live hotels, visiting stores, and all of that. Still, I was able to open accounts, talk to the store owner, but facing reality, there's so many brands that store owners have that it's difficult for them to just push one at a time. So I kind of think about it and say, you know what? Nowadays, this is the era of communication, right? It's not like 10, 15 years before. With social media, we can actually engage directly with the consumer. I can put out a video and hit, or a picture and hit 7,000 people. How many stores I will have to visit? How many events I will have to make in order to reach 7,000 people? I have to be out there on my car visiting the stores every single day. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna start using social media. And what I'm trying to do, instead of going to the store owner, sell the product to the store owner, and then rely on him passing that information of that product to the consumer, and actually engaging directly with the consumer and creating a culture around the brand that the consumer actually goes to the store owner and said, do you know about this cigar? Because if you don't, you should have it here. And that's one of the things that I have seen working very well for the Rojas line. To be honest, on my last trade show that I went to TPE, I never opened so many accounts like that particular show with a first-time being in the show with a brand new brand.
Yep.
The Rojas line, the Rojas line has been out probably for 9 months only, less than a year. And I had store owners coming to me and saying, I need to get this product to my store because my consumers, my customers, they're buying these cigars online. And they approached me and they said, if you bring this cigar in, I'm going to come here and buy it here because I want to support your business. So that's what I'm doing. And it's actually paying better than getting into my car and travel all around the country trying to get those accounts open. Right now, we're only focused on Texas because I really want to be strong in Texas first. I haven't really traveled that much, and to be honest, I never sold so many cigars in my life since I have been making cigars.
Yep. I think a lot of that speaks to the product too, though.
Yeah. It's going back to the communication problem. It's a very simple message to the consumer what the brand is and what the brand stands for. If you smoke mild cigars, this is not your brand. If you smoke big fat cigars, this is not your brand. If you use to smoke cigars because you want to prove a status and you buy super expensive cigars, this is not your cigar. This is the cigar for the cigar specialists. This is the cigar for the people who like cigars, unknown cigars. And the one thing that does helps is that most of the people that know about cigars and they smoke the cigar, there's a lot of people, for example, in every single store, there's one or two guys that they smoke cigars all the time, and the other customers rely on his opinion to buy all the cigars. And those guys, what I call the cigar specialists, those are the guys that I want to reach, and I want them to try the cigars that I have, so they can tell about the rest of the guys in the store about what we do. And the business model that I'm following, instead of spending my money on advertising, which is really expensive on the tobacco world, and spending my money traveling, trying to hit the jobs, and actually I want to invest that money on the consumer. I'd rather send free product and get a group of people to do cotton lights and events on, let's say in X shop, for example, in Virginia. I have one or two friends that they like the things that I do. I tell them, okay, get a group of 10 people. I'm gonna send you some samples and a bottle of whiskey. You just smoke it and talk to your preferred retailer about this particular cigars. Now you guys know about the cigars. So if you talk to the store owner where you usually buy cigars and you said, we really like this cigar. If you bring it in, we're going to add it to the rotation of our cigars. Right there, that account is open, and it's already selling my cigars. So that's the approach I'm taking in terms of the distribution. And I can tell you that it's working very well, even without moving from Texas. I haven't been really traveling out there. And I got a lot of accounts open at the TPE just because the store owners came to me and said, hey, man, I need to get these cigars in the store. I got about 5 people asking for this cigar. Yeah. And it's really working out for me. I think it's the best model. And that's what we're looking at right now in the business side of it in order to keep getting those accounts open all around the States. Yeah. Branding-wise, Rojas will always be the leading brand on the small gauge cigars, and that's the only thing that Rojas is going to make as the Rojas brand. Mm-hmm. I do have other products that I make for the store owners. I'm all about the small business owners, especially the store owners. And I have several products that actually help them to make more profit than a regular brand product and give a better deal to their consumers. Like what we call the custom blends. The Rojas line is all about smaller gauges, but I do make cigars on other sizes for the stores that are as premium as these cigars, as the Rojas line. They are as premium as the Rojas lines. And they have a lot of flavor. They're good cigars made with really good quality tobacco that the store owners can actually make more money. And actually, I gave them some deals that they can pass to the consumers where the consumer also get the best buck for the best deal for their money when they buy those custom blends. And I don't have it for all the stores. There is certain, I keep a territory respect for the stores that have a certain distance between them. But that's another product that we have out there. We don't really talk too much about it because the stores that has it, they keep me busy with those particular cigars, and we can make enough of them, and they're selling better than anything out there.
Mm-hmm.
And probably you guys have seen, some pictures of the custom blends that I made for some stores.
Yep.
On social media. But the Rojas line is always going to be a small gauge. On the other hand, I don't think I will be able to be more than a boutique brand just because of the construction issue with the smaller gauge cigars. So I only have a few rollers that can actually roll smaller gauges. And as we train new rollers, we get better people, better rollers that actually can make the cigars in the way they should be on the smaller gauges. But I don't think we will be able to have, a brand that is going to be more than boutique per se on numbers of cigars sold, just because it's very difficult to make these cigars. I mean, a Ranchero can only make 250 cigars a day on a smaller gauge versus a regular 52 gauge cigar or 54 or 56 or 80. So in that particular size of the volume of how many cigars we're going to make, I don't think we will be more than, we will always be a boutique brand just because of the limitation on how these cigars are made. It's very difficult. I mean, most of the people, and if you ask, that's the number one complaint that I get from regular consumers when I talk to them about my smaller gauge cigars. They said, I like smaller gauges, but 80% of the time or 50% of the time that I pick a smaller gauge cigar from another company, it's plucked. We cannot smoke it because it's really plucked. We can get there through and this and that because it's really difficult. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's your experience in general sense with the smaller gauge that you have tried before.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
And like I said, you bring such a tremendous flavor profile to what I've experienced from your line. I'd love the chance to say that I've had everything from your line, but I would be lying. But Drew has. He's been shipping me some. He shipped me some. And I look forward to trying some more. So if I find two brick and mortars here in the Northeast and put you in touch with them, that would be okay? Because I have two brick and mortars that I don't want to say they always ask me, like, who'd you interview today? I talk to them all the time. Who'd you interview today? Oh yeah, and they say, oh yeah, I've tried his stuff or whatever, and I say, have you ever tried Noel Rojas? And they're like, no. I'm like, listen, like you've had some of his other stuff from his other companies and whatnot, and some of the blends that have been. I'm telling you, it's like if you want a really ultra experience for your consumers and be very special here in the Northeast, you would be smart to call this guy. You know what I mean? I just tell like you would be ultra smart. Like I used to own a cigar shop here in the Providence Metro. Just to give you idea of geographics, we're about an hour south of Boston, right? And if I owned a cigar shop, like I would have your stuff in there. And there are very few interviewees that I would say like the first person I would call would be like, because this is a true tobacconist experience for both the brick and mortar owner and for the consumers. And like I said, I put you on a pedestal with like three people, and that's of the whole industry. From my experience, I've been doing interviews in the cigar industry under two capacities, one under Cigar Club Radio and then one here at Stogie Geeks since 2014. So since 2014, I would say this is a cigar brand you need. The first three calls I would make would be you and two others, and I would be like, that's where we're gonna start. And the other bigger stuff that's advertised, we can figure that out later. But this is where I would start for sure.
So I wonder, what are the two others?
Well, If you listen to Stogie Geeks a lot and you watch it, I am absolutely positively a fan of Pete Johnson, and I know, it's like I love Tatuaje, like I love Tatuaje, and I love Viaje as well, like but Tatuaje would be my first there, and then I would call, and I know it's mass produced, but some of the boutique line that he sells for La Aurora would be Manuel and Noah as well. So it would be Pete.
I love. I
would,
really like Rojas Cigars too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of them that I really enjoy, and every time that I'm in a store, and I'm always trying to support the local businesses, so I go and I buy one or two cigars. If they have one of the smaller gauges, I always buy some of them. I like them.
Yep.
Like flavorful cigars.
Fourth would be Dr. Gabby Caffey stuff for Caffey Cigars. I would also probably do, if I owned a shop, like do a combo with like the coffee, the Honduran coffee experience, because we've all talked about how coffee and cigars go together and whatnot. But I would begin there, and even if I were just to open with those four facings, like company facings, I know I would do well. Like I know, and there'd be no TV on the wall. There'd be no TV. There's no TV at the cigar shop, and we would listen to old music of the flavor profile. So I'd either have some Cuban music in the background, or some Spanish music in the background, or some 50s music in the background, maybe 60s music in the background, but it wouldn't go past 60s. And I'm telling you, it would work. It would work. It would work. And it reminds me of a shop in Dedham, Mass. It's just outside of Boston. It was called Courthouse Cigars. You walk into this old building and you go, and he has 4 chairs. And on any given Saturday morning, you would go there. You would have people listening to like the old terrestrial, the old radio. Usually it's talk radio, politics. Okay, sure, but it's radio. It's not on the television where everybody's like this, smoking it. They're smoking a cigar like this, right? Staring at the television. And you would talk, or you'd have a game on, but it would be on radio. And there would be like 20 guys standing around. People brought their chairs, like for the older guy, say there was 4 older guys and us younger guys would stand around. The older guys would bring their own folding chairs because they couldn't stand for 2 hours and talk, you know what I mean? And I know it would do well. Because I know in my heart of hearts, that's what the consumers seek. I do know that there was a big ring gauge boom. I get it. I know there's a big Nicaraguan boom. I get all the trends. I hear them all the time. Drew and I hear them all the time on Stogie Geeks and all of that stuff. But I'm telling you, like if I started with just those 4 facings, I know people would come to the shop because it'd be a true escape from whatever they got going on in their world, whatever they're doing with their job or the home or whatnot. And I truly believe that when you smoke a cigar, regardless of brand or blend, regardless of region or whatever, it brings you back to that conversation piece and that escape from all the craziness of what's on the TV. Now,
and if you want to make it more special, one of these days make this particular test. Every time that I'm blending something for someone, got a couple of friends that I make cigars for them, private label. If you really want to taste a particular tobacco or cigar, you have to think on your brain, right? You can only focus on one thing at a time. If you really want to do it well. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, as you said, instead of being watching TV, what I usually do, I just light up a candle, turns all the lights off, so there is not distraction for the mind or for the eyes to go to. And if you want to go a little bit further, just turn all the lights off. All the lights off. Just your cigar, your whiskey, whatever water you're drinking, and your lighter. Smoke that cigar, close your eyes, and try to focus on the flavors you're getting. It's a whole different experience.
It is.
I can tell you that it's a whole different experience.
The
The
most
thing is,
definitely.
if you're distracted looking at certain objects, because your mind, your eyes are always switching, from one place to the other. The attention is really short. If you have a way to just disconnect your mind from everything, will be turning off all the lights, just leaving a candle with a very low lighting, so you can only focus on what you're tasting. The experience is completely different. Completely different.
Yep,
Right.
and that's why I would create that. Like no TV, and even if you have to adjust the hours for no TV and have an old school thing, and I know it would do well. I know in my heart of hearts it would do. That's how my cigar shop was. And the only reason why I sold the cigar, well, I didn't say I sold the cigar. The only reason why the cigar shop didn't cease to exist was because my partner was going into another building and he owned the building, and then there was another partner coming in, and I was just like, something, it'd be easier with two instead of three. I'm out. And that was it. But I know that people would come and have a good cup of coffee. You don't even need a liquor license. You don't even need, but now it's not a retirement plan. Like money wise and owning a business, and I own a business besides my responsibilities here at Stogie Geeks, and I have a job here at Security Weekly and all of that. But I know business model that would be its own self-sustaining entity if I kept the prices down in regards to labor and all. Didn't have to do that, and I know people would escape from whatever they got going on and would want to go to this place if I had quality stuff where they could smoke it, because again, the TV's not distracting them. Conversation is me looking at you and doing that there and just saying, holy cow, this is amazing. This time is amazing.
Yeah, every time I go to the factory and I'm down there in Nicaragua, that's what I do. After everybody's gone, factory's empty, I just turn all the lights off. I make some little cigars of different tobaccos that I want to try. Just put some Cuban music on the background.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is dark. Light up a candle, or just put the light of my phone, against the table, just to get a little bit of lighting, just enough to see something. And I just lay back, enjoy that tobacco, and try to get the most I want out of it. And that's, you can always focus on one thing at a time.
Yep.
I mean, particularly me. I mean, I can only focus well to do one thing well done, just one thing at a time. And when I do something like that, man, it's just a complete whole different experience.
Yep.
You really get the flavors. You really get the notes and everything that goes into it. Going back.
Go ahead. No.
So going back to the stores you were talking about. So even before talking to the store owners about the Rojas line, you have 100% support from me. If you can get from each store, let's say you get 5 of the locals, the regular guy that's always there, the smoke cigars, get 5 cigars for 5 guys from this store, 5 guys from the other store, or if you can get more, said, hey guys, there is a brand that he's raising the awareness around his brand and the Small Gauge Cigars, which is what he makes. He wants to send some free samples of cigars with a bottle of whiskey that is made in Texas. The only thing he asks you is just to, make kind of a quarter light, smoke the cigar, and if you like it, just talk to your store owner and tell them that you're going to put that into your rotation of cigars if they bring it in. It only takes 4 or 5 guys to go ask the store owner to bring it in, and they bring it in. They pick up the phone, they call, and they get the cigars.
I know 2 cigar shop owners that I'm going to do that right away. I'm going to take you up on that offer. I'll call you on your cell and take you up on that offer and do that. And I know that if I say, listen, we should get this in, I completely enjoy it. You should do that. And I did that. And if I were doing number 5, and I'm only going to do 5 because I could go up to 10, I would do Nesta Plasencia's blend, the corporate Plasencia, what Nesta does, because I really believe that his stuff. And again, I'm not a fan of the big ring gauge stuff that he does, but that small stuff he does. What was it, Drew? The Elmer del Fuego, the little one, right? Elmer del Campo.
Del Campo. No.
Elmer del Fuego. It's a Fuego. There's a red label. It's a Fuego. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost 90. Yeah, it's the El Madofre.
Right.
Like, his freaking Corona is so good. Like, you know, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, or the Cosecha 146. Like, I'm like, oh wow. Like, I would have those 5 facings. And I'm sure if we talked for another hour, I'd be up to 20 facings. But, yeah. But I'm giving you the order. Like, I'm giving you the order, right? Of what I would do. Like, because I would be like, I'm telling you, like, there's stories to tell. Like, there's so much stories to tell there. So I'm gonna be calling you with those 2 cigar shop owners for sure. But I want to have you back like sometime in July or August if your time continues, because
Sure.
I want to continue the series and then do that there. So I'll be in touch with you to actually do that for sure.
Very
Awesome. Drew, is there anything else you want to say before I take us out?
No, I was just gonna just cap on what Noel was saying about his exclusive. You know, I've been to 2 cigar lounges that actually, no, just one. I'm sorry, just one. I got introduced to Noel Rojas Cigars by his exclusive house cigar that he had for Lakewood Cigars. Hope they don't mind me saying that. If not, you can cut it out.
No, that's all right. Say whatever you want.
The Gavito family, you know, and they introduced me to Noel cigars through their exclusive blend, and then from there they're like, if you love that, you're gonna like the statement. And so, yeah, as I've developed a relationship with Noel cigars as a consumer, I can't say high enough praises than what I've seen. If you ever have an encounter with Noel Rojas, one of the most nicest gentlemen that you can talk to, speak with. I mean, he takes time. He's not rushed. It's just like when he's developing his cigars. I mean, phenomenal man to have a discussion with, and you don't get that all the time in the industry, and not because probably they don't want to. It's just that they just haven't done that consistently, as Noel's doing here in Texas. And you know, all great things from Texas.
There you go.
Just keep coming.
There you go. Noel, please stay on the line when we wrap up, because I want to talk to you about a couple of stuff that's offline there.
Sure.
So don't hang up over there. I want to thank you for appearing on Stogie Geeks, episode 329. I want to thank the listeners for listening. I know this was a slightly longer episode. I also want to thank our producer, Johnny, for staying overtime. He's 19 minutes overtime from if we're watching the clock over there. So I want to say thank you to Johnny for that. And I want to remind the Stogie Geeks that we can keep the conversation going all week long. Go to StogieGeeks.com. Click on the cigars that we've been reviewing. We also got some sponsorship stuff over there. Check out our sponsors there. I want to remind you that behind every story, behind every cigar, there's a story worth knowing. So shop local and get out there and support your local business. And I want to say special thanks to J.C. Newman Cigars, Havana Cigar Club, Placencia Cigars, and McAuliffe Cigars. Stogie Geeks, over and out. Be safe. Take care of each other. Peace.